Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons, back with a well overdue signature guitar licks for you. Alright, the player in question is Marty Friedman. I've tried to put these licks in ascending difficulty, but I mean this isn't exactly easy stuff. How he can seemingly effortlessly weave together such fluid phrases on the fly is totally beyond me. You can jump to each lick using the timestamps below or the YouTube's chapter feature in the video playback timeline. All the tabs are up on my patreon.com/JBFmusic. After demoing each lick much more slowly, I'll dive into why they sound the way they do, exploring the techniques used and some music theory. By the end of this, you should hopefully have some new Marty Friedman licks under your fingers, along with a practical understanding of why they sound the way they do. If you like this format designed to be as easy as possible for you to get the information that you want from the video, let me know with a like and a comment. It only takes a few seconds to do, and any interaction really has a hugely positive impact on the channel, really helps it out. But I mean, the main task here is to hopefully answer the age-old question: are Megadeth truly the Beatles of metal? Let's face it, no one's ever asked that. But should they? Some lovely human being has put the isolated guitar solos from Rust in Peace on YouTube, which I've got to say made transcribing them way easier. Having said that, I've just done them by ear. Any corrections or suggestions are as always more than welcome, just pop them below. If you take anything away from this lick, the wide vibrato and bending an out note into key, pre-bends often with an extra note being picked, and that quick pre-bend followed by the bend thing are the main techniques. And if you want more of this sort of thing in your feed, make sure to subscribe and enable all notifications so you never miss out on new content. Alright, we've got a tone bend, bit of vibrato, rake into the next note. So ideally you probably want to go through the D and the G strings to get to the B, but even if you just come through raking the G to get the B, that's fine. You just want a bit more of that kind of vicious attack going into it. So we have that 15th fret that we're raking into, 17th fret. Next up is the first Friedmanism. I've gone into way more details about his pre-bends in the video with the eye up there if you need more of an explanation. But in a nutshell, you want to pre-bend the string, I'd say even a quarter tone. It'll do, you know, ideally you want that semitone, but even if you just bend a little bit, it'll do the job. You return it to pitch, then bend it up a semitone. So pre-bend, ideally by a semitone, return to pitch, and bend back up. So if we just bend, or pre-bend, without that return to pitch, it's just not right. So you're pre-bending, hitting the note, return to pitch, and then re-bending. You might want a tiny bit of harmonic attack on this note as well, so that's just letting a little bit of the flesh of my thumb hit the string. Up to you whether you think that's there or not. But we keep that bend held, and stick your third finger on the same string, but a fret higher, the 17th fret. And because the string is already bent, we get the correct pitch. We get this pitch. Now he could be bending further here, but to me it sounds more like this extended bend trick. For more examples, click the little eye up there. Down to that 15th fret, then a tone bend with some vibrato on that 18th fret. this trill. So I'm just hitting that once and doing essentially 2 pull-offs. A 17th fret of the G. And then what I'd suggest doing here is a really wide vibrato, just pulling the string down. Maybe even think of it as a bend, rather than vibrato. So at a glance, I'd assume this was a Dorian lick, and from this, it's probably easy to hear why I might have thought of that. An unexpected Dorian bonus lick here as well. Anyway, that's not what's happening at all. The backing goes... And while it's a riff, it does a great job of outlining chords in the most James Bond of ways. So bar 1 is a D5 with the 5th in the bass. If we compare it to the intro, it's probably safe to call it a D minor. With Marty's line bending to the root, hitting the root again, and then the second. Bar 2 has a B flat and a D. Again, comparing this to the song's intro, it's probably safe to call this a B flat. With the bent notes we're playing here, we're essentially getting E to an F, giving us a sharp 4 to the 5th, applying a B flat Lydian, which makes sense, it's in the same key. A really bit of nice tension and release here as well. Bar 3 is a bit trickier, we've gone out of key here. If we look to the intro again, it's a B diminished triad, which sort of makes sense here, but the note we're playing is a G, giving us a kind of diminished add 6, which is pretty out there, particularly for metal. To me, I think Friedman is hearing this chord as a G. The rhythm guitar's 2 notes of B and D, the other B being here, fit into the G major triad of G, B and D. And since the lead part is playing a G, I'd say that's what we've got here. Maybe more of a G dominant 7, which would let that F from the intro exist in the harmony of the G7 as well. A G7 being a G, B, D, and an F. And bar 4 going back over the B flat. And the lead over that is going from B flat's 5th to its 3rd. And again, we have the 2nd. And then we're bending up a tone, hitting a D. And at this point in bar 5, we're going back to D minor, which gives us the progression D minor, B flat major, G7, B flat, going back to the D when it repeats, obviously. Now I bet you can probably hum, sing, or even just imagine the solo over the top of this. So Megadeth might really be the Beatles of metal.
Interesting, poppy, weird kind of jazzy chords underneath the music.
Okay, lick number 2 is from an improvised clip, which I think is often the best way of really getting an idea of a player's habits and idiosyncrasies. Here we're in F sharp minor. The main takeaways here are Marty's use of pentatonics to blend more traditional rock licks like these. There's a ton of great rock cliches with the eye up there, but yeah, mixing that stuff with the more Japanese sounding ideas. One could argue like Lennon and McCartney in 8 Days a Week. What we've also got is use of chromatics, the kind of bit to build tension, which is just amazing. Alright, this is mainly pentatonic, so there's not too much in terms of the interval analysis, it's more about how he uses a scale. So we're starting off with very wide vibrato. I'm using the slide here for a position shift, so we're kind of ready to move up the fretboard. And using an octave higher for another really smooth position shift. So we've got that vibrato, the hammer, slide, and then we're using this octave to slide all the way up here. So we've managed to move from here to here in no time at all, and it doesn't feel awkward in the slightest. So in bar 3, this little trill and slide could end up sounding bluesy, but because we're doubling this 11th fret, and I'm using a position shift on the 14th, sliding to the 16th, it really helps change the context. In the next bar, we've got the 16th fret, which is bent really quickly. So rather than a pre-bend, this is a genuine bend, which has been returned to pitch incredibly quickly. And this leads us into that typical rock phrase, which starts off with that 16th fret on the D string. We get a quick bit of vibrato on that 17th fret tone bend, which we really don't have much time for. In this next bit, we could see using this as the second degree of the scale, but what I think's happening is Marty is using a C sharp minor pentatonic over the F sharp minor backing. So this sort of suggests an F minor 7, add 9 and 11, which it might give you a bit of a headache, but basically this gives more of a kind of Southeast Asian pentatonic type sound, you know, kind of traditional music in that regard. So a bonus tip here, try licks in the pentatonic 1/5 higher. So here we're playing an F sharp minor, and you want to play ideas in the C sharp minor pentatonic. All the notes are very much still in the same key, but it'll give it a floatier feeling. I'll bring in an F sharp drone and just give you a bit more of that concept. Anyway, back on track, and Marty resolves this lick down to this note here, which is F sharp's minor third. So it's more of a floaty flourish than anything really tonally substantial, but it is a part of his sound and seemed worth kind of deviating into. So next up we have the chromatic madness. How he gets these to sound so damn cool is beyond me. Part of it is definitely playing the blues note here as well as here, so you get that kind of timbral trill thing going on. Also adding in the flat 6 from Aeolian, and finishing up with a bit of the Dorian blues scale, or the secret shred scale, some of us know more than that with the eye up there, and ending the lick on a triumphant bend up to the 5th. Hitting it again and adding in that lovely vibrato. Alright, those familiar with the channel, shout out to the Lick Squad Elite, you guys rock. Will likely recognise this as the Hirajoshi scale, more on that in Marty Friedman's Pro Tips tutorial with a little eye up there. This first group of notes is 5/4, quintuplets that I've probably run out of cards at this point, so I'll link down to content dealing with how to count or feel these in the pinned comment in the video's description. So we got 5 notes in the space of 4 essentially. The word hippopotamus is a good one to use, hippopotamus, hippopotamus. Then into triplets. These can be pretty tricky timings to switch between, but a pretty Friedman thing to do. The other main takeaways here are the use of doubled notes, again tapping into that Japanese sound he likes to replicate, and a sort of a Hirajoshi arpeggio almost, for lack of a better term, with that 14th fret finger roll, which I'd suggest trying different fingerings combinations to see what works best for you. It's also worth mentioning Marty's downward pick slanting and his economy picking, but we'll get into all of these as we unearth this lick in a bit more detail. So like I said, we're starting off in notes that are groups of 5, then you've got this legato, doubling up that 11th fret down to the 10th, which gets doubled as well. And I suppose it's well worth noting that while we have this vague kind of melodic idea, more or less repeating, Friedman is highly skilled at changing it on the fly, so it doesn't have that sometimes dull and stuffy sequence sound where it sometimes comes across as more of an exercise you can sometimes get in shred guitar. So there are probably a few mini sweeps in here as well when he's changing strings. It's most likely he's kind of pushing down twice through them. It's totally up to you whether you do that or not. I've tried to include them in my playthroughs to make them a bit more obvious. So say we've already gone... An example of this kind of down through 2 successive string thing would be here. So when we're playing that 10th fret again, you're going down 10th, down on 9th, then that hammer on. So rather than down up, you'll go down down. And again here, just another down. Down here as well, all downward picking really. So using a downward pick slanting, holding the pick like this so you can sweep down through the strings does come in really handy, particularly if you want to get the kind of amount of speed on it that he does. And that's how I tackled this next bit, just sort of sweeping down and hammering on the notes on the strings. Now this 14th fret across the B and the E strings here, it definitely gave me a bit of grief. Marty rolls his 3rd finger like I did there, which feels a bit weird to me, but probably got the most consistent results at higher speed. The main thing I need to pay attention to is move my hand and not anchor my 1st finger on this 10th fret. It might just be the way my hands work, but if I keep this finger above the 10th fret, I can't really get that particularly comfortably. If I let it move, it just flows so much more easily. Now, this might not be a problem for you, you might not counter it, but it seemed worth mentioning because it was a definite hurdle for myself. So I'm still not totally set on if I'm rolling my 3rd finger or using the 3rd and the 4th. I have found, however, that picking the E string with an upstroke really helps make things a bit cleaner. So that I would be doing a down here with the hammer. That's a kind of lead in. Then we're doing that again. Down, down and a hammer, down and a hammer. And rather than going down here, you might want to try it, but it didn't really work for me. I switched it up. So after that one, I'm hopping over to the E string, playing that with an upstroke, and then sweeping up through here as well. Now this lick does actually go on quite a bit longer, but it veers away from the Hirajoshi scale in this downward sweeping, which were the main things I really wanted to nail in with this lick. If you want the rest of the lick, let me know in the comments. There'll also be a full version of it up on my patreon.com/JBF music. Okay, I mean the whole solo in Tornado Souls is absolutely amazing, but this part highlighted Marty Friedman's arpeggio use in really quite an interesting way, which is the main theme of this lick. Now, he might have originally played this first bit on the high E string. I prefer that fingering, but the clips I watched, albeit the more recent ones from the 2000s, he does actually play it up here. So we're sliding into this arpeggio. You can hopefully see the chord names up there. So this is over a B minor. And it has a bit of that Hirajoshi sound going on. So if we look at the notes, we've got an F sharp, we've got a D, we've got a C sharp, a B, and another F sharp. If we refinger it like this, right, hopefully you can see it's pretty much a B minor, but with this C sharp suggesting an add down. Now you might want to roll your finger here for the 16th frets. That feels weird to me. I don't really like rolling my fingers for whatever weird reason that is. And it's the same with the next bar. I'm more or less sliding from this 17th fret up to the 19th. Now Marty doesn't seem to slide live anymore, but it sounds like he did in the original version, so that's why I've gone with that. While we go up in pitch, all we're really doing is adding this extra B note at the top of the shape. So essentially we're going through the arpeggio because we're outlining a B minor, but still keeping in that lilting ninth, that note there. Now at this point, the rhythm switches to a G5, so it's an implied G major, on the last 8th note of the second bar. Here we are playing an F sharp, which we could see as the major 7th, but it's probably more that Marty's changing the chords on the beat of the bar, but I mean, either way it works. In bar 3, we've got an E minor arpeggio. You might recognise it from this pattern. But obviously we're doing a slightly shorter version of that, just going to the D string. So we're playing this over a G major. Now both cards have a G and a B in them, but here the addition of the E over the G major suggests the 6th. So these notes are in G, that note's in a G major, and as is that. So that's the G, the B, the G, and the B. So the kind of the unexpected note, as it were, is that E, as I say, just suggesting a major add 6. Theory aside, what you want to watch out for here is when it goes into triplets, so it's over the G, B, and high E strings. So you have then the triplets. And back on track with the theory. Now, because he resolves this lick in the next bar, it works really well. If you go around playing lots of E minor arpeggios over G major chords, it will sound a bit meandering. If you do it a little bit and then resolve it, it's going to sound great. This is a fantastic example of that. And how we resolve it is by bending the C up to the D, which is G's 5th. And to round it up, we've got this little 19, 18, 19. Now, my ears might be making this up, this 18th fret, but I think it's there. It's G's flat 3rd, right? So this is kind of hinting at a G minor chord, but nothing too drastic. The note itself is a B flat, and harmonically an A sharp, so that is from the B harmonic minor. We're still in a B minor key then, so it does make some sort of musical sense here, even if it is just in passing. With the vibrato, you want it wide, but make sure the note returns to pitch. So rather than holding it sharp and bending it from there, you want to think of it as almost like a series of bends. It's easier said than done at full speed, but it will make the lick sound way more crisp and tight. There's a bit of string noise after, which I've notated as a crosshead note in parenthesis. To be honest, I just missed that out. I know some guys like to pull off the open E string. It's up to you whether you do anything there or not. And at this point, the chord changes to an E5, which, particularly given the last bar, you might think is an E minor. But when we break down the notes and say you refinger it like this, you might actually recognise it as in fact an E major arpeggio. And even the next bit, I'm bound to get some comments on this, but I'm pretty sure this is a string skip rather than a sweep. It sounds like this note is hammered on rather than picked in the isolated solo. In live clips that I found, his hand position doesn't seem like a sweep's happening. There's a link in the video description for the one in particular I'm talking about. Also, to me it makes sense in terms of the fingering, having come from this arpeggio. Your first finger's totally perfectly in place, as is your second to start the next part of the lick. It also makes playing the D's 15th fret, where we kind of wrap up the lick, a bit easier, well, for me anyway. And you might want to break this down into 4 parts, that's what helped me. There's this higher bit. I'm just sweeping up through the B and the G strings, sliding down. Then I'm using a down on the D, and then hammering on, well, down again on the G, then hammering on. Skipping over this trill on the E string. Now, whether I hit this one with a downstroke or an upstroke seems to be a bit random, in all honesty. I don't think my hand's made its mind up quite yet. This 4th part I play with a downstroke on the G, and then pull off. And I'm going to sweep downward through the D and the G strings, sliding down, and adding on some wide vibrato on this last 9th fret. It's best to pull the string down, and I also find that playing this lick on the neck pickup, but switching to the bridge on that, when you're sliding down, so just after you hit that 13th fret, Switch from your neck pickup to your bridge. Really helps give it that Friedman pop. But yeah, if the string skip part does give you bother, work out which section is the problem, isolate it, then work on joining it all together. This bit for me, getting to that note, for whatever reason, just took a little bit of fiddling about using this kind of isolation approach. So if you know your string skips, you'll see this next one is a simple E major arpeggio. Okay, cut out again. How do I explain this little guy on the 15th fret here? Oh, bear with me, but I think Marty's hearing this chord as an E dominant 7 flat 9 jazz. So a sort of Phrygian dominant side going on. Again, I'll link to a comprehensive lesson below on that topic. And while typical in metal, here we're playing it over the 4 chord rather than the 5, which is quite unexpected. In terms of more traditional music theory, he could be borrowing the E7 from the B melodic minor and just adding that flat 9 for a bit of spice. Or if we think of it in a more blues context, it should just be a 4 to a 5. It's a bit up in the air as far as I'm concerned. If you've got any theories where you think you've nailed it down, do let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested to find out. But yeah, next up we're playing over an F sharp, which being B minor's 5 chord, we'd quite often hear the Phrygian dominant mode being played over it, and that's exactly what we've got here. So on the record in the full band mix, I heard this rhythm being played totally differently to how it actually is an isolated track. I would suggest checking it out for yourself, maybe at 75 or 50% speed, and seeing what you think, you know. But to me, it seems like he's going... Whereas I thought it was just... trem-picked, but on closer inspection, when you listen to the guitar by itself, it sounds like that rhythm. In terms of the picking, you might want to do alternate down, up, down. I opted for a kind of gallop thing, a down, down, up. Just felt that flowed a bit better. And as we put our wide vibrato on the 6th fret on the G string, the chords underneath have changed to an A5. And then there's a B5 that acts as a kind of leading note to get back to the B. So that just in passing really. But what this is doing is it's suggesting an A major because we're holding this note here. And then a B flat minor. Albeit just in passing. Okay, so in context, those chords, well just power chords. Because of Marty's awesome and tasteful lead playing, they become a B minor, hinting at a B add 9, a G, to possibly a G minor, in passing anyway, an E7, using the flat 9 in passing, an F sharp 7 flat 9, an A major, B flat minor, resolving to that B minor. So, let's string those all together. Beatles of Metal confirmed. It's canon now, guys. It's canon!
You know, being a big Beatles fan, those guys used a lot of crazy guitar chords too.
Okay, so although I've been joking about it, those are, by metal standards, some very Beatles sounding chords. Without sounding too unbearably pretentious, there is something to be said for the harmonic sophistication of Megadeth when compared to their thrash metal contemporaries. For an idea of how this stuff might work in other contexts, check out this What If Marty Friedman played for Metallica at Enter Sandman Solo Reimagined. This has been Signature Guitar Licks, that's the playlist there. But yeah, hit subscribe to keep up to date with the channel, leave me a comment, check out the tabs on my Patreon, and enable notifications by ringing that little bell on the side if you feel so inclined. Cheers, guys.